Hi, I'm John Cezanne, a member of the Olympia Indivisible endorsement team. Welcome everyone to Olympia Indivisible's Meet the Candidates virtual town hall. Thanks for being here. The Olympia Indivisible endorsement team hopes that the Meet the Candidates event will help you to make an informed choice when it comes time for the endorsement vote. In the next month, we'll be sending a ballot to each of our over 600 Olympia Indivisible members to vote for the candidates that they want Indivisible to endorse. For those who couldn't attend the live event or missed any part of it, we'll be recording it and posting it to the Olympia Indivisible website. Additionally, the endorsement team will present an evaluation of the candidates at an all-member meeting to be held just prior to the endorsement vote at a date to be determined sometime in mid-June. Yesterday, we interviewed Melissa Denton in the first of our Port of Olympia town halls. If you missed that session, you can view the recording on the Olympia Indivisible website. It should be up in a couple days. Today, we will be meeting Amy Evans. And next week, we will meet with Joel Hansen, the third candidate in the District 3 race to replace retiring Commissioner Zita. And Jesse Simmons will also be with us on that same day. And he's the only declared candidate for District 2 for the District 2 race to replace retiring Commissioner McGregor. Today, we are pleased to have Amy Evans with us. Ms. Evans is a newcomer to the local political scene, so we don't yet know much about her. So this is a great opportunity for us to learn about Amy and her platform. We applaud Mrs. Evans, as we do all the candidates, for their willingness to put themselves on the line to serve all of us and all of Thurston County. So Amy Evans, I'll hand it over to you. Please take about 10 minutes or so to tell us about yourself and why you want to serve on the Port Commission. And then we will open it up for 30 minutes or so of Q&A. We have several questions that were pre-submitted, but if anybody in the audience would like to submit a question, please put them in the chat preceded by the letter Q. So I think that gets all the housekeeping out of the way. So it's up to you, Amy. Take it over.
Okay, great. I'm Amy Evans. I don't know if I'll need 10 minutes, but you can ask me more questions if you'd like. I am running for Port Commissioner. One of my friends, Chris Richardson, he's a Chehalis tribal member, and I worked with him on the Big Brothers Big Sisters board and on real estate projects. And he was running for this position, and he passed away unexpectedly. And based on my experience interacting with the port and some of my political involvement with the One Community work group with the City of Olympia on our homeless response, and just being a private citizen who's been engaged, it seemed like the right time to step up and try and follow in Chris's footsteps of being collaboration oriented and taking a role in public service. So I grew up in Olympia. I moved here in 4th grade. I went to Capitol High School. I went away for about 10 years to college. I lived in Montana. And then I came back because I have a niece and a nephew and parents. And I was previously an attorney. I owned a little store on the west side of Olympia when I returned from, I call it being a recovered attorney. So when I had changed careers, and then retail was not my passion. So my sister took that over. She owns Spruce, which is a skin and wax shop on the west side. And she took over the retail, and I got into commercial real estate. So I've been doing that for about 5 years. And I live about 3/4 of a mile from my sister and my niece and nephew, and 5 miles from my parents. I've been very involved in the nonprofit world here in Olympia. I've been a big sister. I met my little when they were 8, and they're currently 23. And I just am so proud. So doing great. First one in the family to graduate from high school, and has a full-time job and an apartment. So a lot of, challenges to that. So that's one of my biggest learning experiences has been through Alex. So, and I also served as the board president here on Big Brothers Big Sisters for quite a number of years. I'm on the Community Foundation board, the Providence Board, the Olympia Downtown Alliance Board, the Thurston County Roundtable Board. So I like to be engaged in my community, and I think that's part of why I chose to run for Port Commissioner. So I appreciate you all having me, and it's actually been really fun, the campaign process, learning about lots of groups of people and the different points of view in our community. And it's going to be a good tool if I'm elected to have resources and connections of people to reach out to for feedback. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So as part of your, we've been doing a little research on your background,
Yeah.
and we noticed that I think in your law school, you were active in the Federalist Society. Are you still active in that organization?
I'm not. Nope. I was just active in law school. They were really instrumental in bringing in different speakers for debates. And I was really passionate about being a part of that.
Okay. So let's talk about the port now. The losses at the marine terminal are concerning. In 2020, they were close to 1.8 million. You state in your response to the question about this issue that given the nature of the port and its mission, there may be areas of its business that supplement less profitable areas to serve the public good. Could you elaborate on what you meant by that? What are these profitable areas?
Sure. Well, I think the low-hanging fruit is utilizing the land resources and real estate that the port has. And that's one of the areas that I'm most passionate about. There's specifically in Tumwater, there's hundreds of acres of property that are ready to be leased. So there would be ground leases by private companies, and that would be revenue for the Port of Olympia, which is exciting. Specifically to your question around the maritime port, I think that I'm still learning about the budget, and I've reached out to the port staff to try and get a better understanding. I understand that there's some different opinions on the way depreciation is accounted for and different things, and I'm trying to refine my understanding of what the nuts and bolts of the maritime profitability are. And I'm certainly not yet an expert. They've said that after filing week, they're going to reach out to all of us to help us understand some of that. So whether or not the maritime terminal can be more profitable or how profitable it is now, I'm still getting my hands wrapped around that. But it seems like there's opportunities for alternative lines of business. With some of the polling they've been doing with the waterfront development, green energy is an area that popped out to me as a win-win. And yeah, so to answer your question, I think that both utilizing the real estate resources to generate revenue and then looking at alternative lines of business for the maritime port would be the two that pop out.
Yeah, you mentioned that given the public's interest in green energy as evidenced by Vision 2050, that you would explore where there were opportunities there. What opportunities do you see in this area?
Well, one that came up, there's a pellet company that operates out of Grays Harbor that I've had some interaction with in my real estate, wearing my real estate hat. And that was of interest. I think cross-laminated lumber is an area that I've been speaking to different people about. Again, I'm still at the learning stage of gathering information, but those are a couple of things that have popped up in my conversations. It doesn't sound like manufacturing solar panels is going to be something that's going to be sustainable here. From what I've understood, the wind turbines have gotten so large that shipping those out is a bit of a challenge. So I think listening to people who have expertise in those different areas, and that's the approach that I would take. Not that I have all the answers, but just listening to what hasn't worked and what possibly could in the future.
Okay. So in a response to our question about the Panatone New Market proposal, you replied that you would recuse yourself from voting any vote regarding it. So can you explain why you would need to recuse yourself?
Sure. So in my capacity as a real estate broker, I have been actively working on that project. So as a port commissioner, it would not be appropriate for me to vote on that based on my capacity as a commercial real estate broker. So I would recuse myself from any voting around that.
Okay. And on June 22nd, there was a public there was a meeting, a commissioners meeting, where people gave public commentary on their opinions about the Panattoni proposal. And you gave public comment at that meeting as a concerned citizen, but didn't disclose that you were working on the project in your capacity as a real estate person. So can you explain why that happened?
Sure. The project was explained by Alan Rowe, and I was listed as the real estate broker. So I thought that was clear because I was named in his presentation as the real estate broker. I have since learned that I need to be more intentional about repeating that so that everyone's clear. That was not intended to be a hiding of the ball. I just thought that it was clear to the public based on the preceding comments from Alan Rowe. So.
Okay. What are your views concerning the removal of the Fifth Avenue Dam in order to restore the Deschutes River estuary?
So I've spoken with representatives from the Squaxin tribe and a number of different stakeholders, the yacht club, the Squaxin tribe, and a variety of other people. I don't want to say in between, but of differing opinions. I'm waiting to see what the EIS comes out with in June. So I think that will be illuminating. It seems like from what I'm hearing that the dam is probably going to be removed. And so what we should be talking about is not if we're going to remove the dam, but how we're going to address the impact of removing the dam. So dredging, sediment disposal, given the contamination, estuary, public use, public access, the working waterfront. So that's really where I've been focusing my efforts. I feel like this particular issue has been a binary for a long time of you're either pro lake or you're pro estuary. And based on the people I've been talking to, I don't feel like it needs to be an either or. It feels like there's some both and opportunities for what's best for the environment, what's best for the treaty rights and culture and history with the tribe, what's best for the yacht club and the port, and what's best for the public. So that's actually something I'm spending a lot of time learning about and talking to people about to make sure I'm not being ignorant to the science and also not being ignorant to the impacts. But from what I've learned thus far, it seems like it's pretty likely the science and the political will is that the dam is going to be removed, and we need to figure out how to handle that.
Okay. The port manages quite a bit of real estate throughout the county. How might the port improve management of that real estate? You touched a little bit on that, but maybe you could elaborate.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing would be collaboration with the commissioners so that there's a shared vision for what that could look like. And that doesn't mean everyone has to have the same point of view, but it means that we're all rowing in the same direction. And that's one of the things that if I'm elected and Jesse is elected and Commissioner Downing, I think would be really exciting because I think that for a long time, there's been there hasn't been the opportunity for some of these projects to move forward with a collaborative approach. And so I think that by doing that, you could create more market opportunities. The property in Tumwater is extremely marketable, both the industrial and soon to follow the retail and some of the other property. That's a little slower just based on the ramifications of COVID. But given my real estate background, I think I can bring that lens to the conversation. And then obviously there's opportunities in the waterfront as well, which are currently being explored.
Yeah, well, the issue I think with the development in the Newmarket area is a sensitive ecosystem. So what are your views about that?
Yeah, so I think that we've done a great job of creating structure around tree ordinance and habitat conservation. And so we have a great system in place for protecting the environment while allowing for sustainable growth. And so that is something I'm excited about the new market development is it's zoned light industrial, and the community, when they came together to create their land use planning, said, no, there's certain uses that aren't as not everyone wants to look at a warehouse, but we still need warehouses. And this was where they said the best spot in Tumwater would be for that in their community when they did their land use planning. And so the current development plan is still being refined, but they intend to follow all environmental protections, habitat conservation, tree ordinances. And I think there's will even be some opportunities for some win-wins, like there were at the West Bay Yards project, where there was environmental remediation that happened, which was made possible by the multifamily housing that was put in. So I see the same opportunity in Tumwater for public amenities, environmental protection to happen alongside of development.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how the commission operates. Over the years, the Port Commission has handed a lot of its decision-making powers over to the executive director. How do you view the relationship between the commission and the port, where the port staff, where it's most important for commissioners to make decisions?
So again, I want to follow the process that's in place and the roles that I've been tasked with. So we had an introductory session with the port director and a variety of other people, and it was described to us as candidates that our role was to manage the budget, to manage the executive director, and to manage the rules of governance. And so I think that you are taking a zoomed out lens as a commissioner, and you are tasking things to staff. That's something that I continue to learn more of in my nonprofit roles as well. Just that balance of empowering staff and then also weighing in on strategic direction. So I see it as not getting in the weeds, the way that I've learned about board dynamics, and I'm extending that to commissioners based on what I've learned thus far. So you're guiding the direction, and then you're letting the staff execute on boots on the ground.
The port currently spends $4.6 million on debt service, and they have a debt, I think, of over 30 million. And they rely on taxes to pay it off. What do you know about the debt? And did port commissioners make good choices in incurring these debts?
I have to say that's one of the areas when I reached out to staff to better understand the budget that I don't yet fully understand. So that's something that I'm hoping next week, when the staff sets up a time to go through the budget with us, I'll be able to comment on more fully.
Okay. And kind of a related question is, the port commissioners recently voted to do an economic benefit study instead of an economic impact study. Was this a good decision?
I'm not sure that I know what the difference between an economic benefit study and an economic impact study is. Can you define that?
It's a study of the benefits that accrue from the port's activities without looking at the costs, basically.
Oh, well, yeah, I would think that you would want to look at both the benefits and the costs to assess whether a project was viable.
Yeah. Okay. So when you watch the port meetings, you can hear the verbal comments, but the commissioners voted 2-1 to eliminate written public comments. These are like emails from the public that come in from the minutes of the commission meetings. So you have to, in order to see them, you'd have to do a public records request. Do you support including the written public comments in the meetings? In the meeting minutes, excuse me.
I love how thorough your questions are. That's not something that I've thought about, and I did not follow that particular vote. I would want to understand better the rationale of why that was decided.
Commissioner Downing said that he thought it was too much work for staff. They'd have to put the emails, attach them to the meeting minutes.
Okay. I guess I don't feel like I have a clear opinion. I'm all for transparency, and I do think that there can be an overwhelming amount of email coming in just based on the format. It's easy to have repetition there, but I would err towards transparency, I guess. But on the particular issue, I would have to understand what the parameters were.
Okay, so and when our discussion came up yesterday with Melissa Denton, she suggested that it would be a good idea to expand the port to 5 commissioners now that the county is soon to be or will be over 300,000 in population. Do you have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I think in concept, I would support that as well. I think my concern after talking to some labor groups and having some different interesting discussions about this is representation. So if there was still districting, there was maybe the 3 districts were still represented and you had 2 at-large positions, because otherwise you can. I didn't fully, this is not something that I'm a scholar in either, but just the consolidation of power that could happen if you didn't maintain districts, and then also the politicization of redistricting. So I think maintaining the 3 districts and adding 2 at-large members seemed like a good solution to me. I think the three is too much of a consolidation of power for good decisions. So procedurally, I don't know how that works. I know at the county commission level, they had to recharter and it was much more complicated, but in general, I support the concept of 5 people.
Okay. So if one commissioner disagrees with a policy decision, should he or she go public with their dissent, or should the commission speak with one voice?
I think that there should be a natural tension between the perspectives of the different commissioners, and then hopefully they can reach some sort of collaborative action plan together. So I guess both and on that one. I think there should be civil disagreement, and I would like to think that through that civil disagreement, you can reach a collaborative solution.
Okay. Should the Port of Olympia seek out contracts with the U.S. military for cargo or other services?
I think our community has been very clear that that's not something that they would like to see happen.
Okay. So the Port Commission not only oversee the budget, but set the policy for the management of the port's land and property. The port is a major landholder in the Thurston County. What's your, we talked about this already. How would you address the property management as a commissioner? It's a kind of redundant question. I think you've already discussed this, but if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think just creating more market-driven opportunities will make the properties more active and generate revenue for the port.
Okay, so I have a question that just came in from the audience. They'd say, I'd like to know more about your relationship with the tribal member who intended to run, but who passed away, and why that inspired you to run.
Sure. So Chris and I were on the Big Brothers Big Sisters board. We were personal friends. We had recently been working on trying to get people together. The collaboration campaign name was actually spawned out of a group of us that were getting together, trying to get people who don't engage in politics normally to engage, and people that, yeah, so he was a personal friend. He was a nonprofit friend. We had never done business together, but he was in the real estate sector and with his with the Chehalis Tribal Enterprises. So yeah, that's how I know him.
Okay.
He was a wonderful, wonderful man. So I can't say enough good things about him.
So in the questionnaire, you refer repeatedly to the Port Vision 2050 and the mission statement from the strategic plan Port Vision 2025. Besides the mission statement, can you elaborate on your opinion regarding the Commission's current stated goals and values?
My opinion on the goals and values that came out of that process.
Yes.
I think it was a vast work that incorporated the opinions of the community at large, and I respect the process and what came out of it very much. I think that if we can have processes like that that take into consideration the viewpoints of diverse stakeholders, that's how we're going to create the best policy.
Yeah, well, that leads into my next question. How should the port support justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion?
So as a white person, I think that as a white person who likes to take action, I think I have misstepped in this realm repeatedly because I want to do something. And I think that what I am learning is that I need to clear the space and hold the space for people of color. And I think that that is something that the port and the port commissioners can continue to do. I think that creating opportunities for engagement and thinking about even the structure or the time of meetings and things so that you can incorporate a more diverse group of people is something that we don't always think about how our biases impact. Not providing childcare means that a large segment of people can't participate. So maybe we provide childcare, things like that. I have been continuing to try and do that work and also realize that I need to yield to those people of color that need to be leading this work and being an ally and an advocate.
Okay. Well, actually, you're very concise in your answers, and I'm out of questions. So if anybody would like to pose a question, I'm open to it. And if not, you could either put it in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, well, I don't see anybody wanting to ask anything. So if you have any closing comments you'd like to say?
May I ask a question of you all?
Sure.
I guess, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am intending in my campaign to demonstrate that this is not just lip service. I genuinely want to collaborate with diverse people. And I have spoken with a number of different groups, even just today, from what their lens is. And I'm curious what the lens of your group in regards to the port, what do you think the most pressing issues are, and what would you like to see out of a commissioner?
Okay, would anybody like to respond to that question?
I'll give it a try. There's been within our organization, or at least within people within our organization, have expressed a lot of concern about the tax burden that they have and the tax to support the Port of Olympia. Mm-hmm. And they worry about whether or not the port is ever going to get to a point where they're not raising taxes every year. So taxes, I think, are a big issue for a lot of people. There are also people who are concerned about losing all those trees over at Tumwater, where they're planning to build some warehouses. Mm-hmm. And so climate change and that sort of thing is certainly a big concern of our organization. Mm-hmm. And mitigation of climate change is something that we're very interested in. Those are two issues that come to my mind, and maybe while others have been thinking about their responses, maybe somebody else could chime in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that somebody from the port team will speak up to some of the issues that you have been expressing concerns about. Amy, I just want to say I appreciate the directness of your answers, and I appreciate the consultation that you have been doing and intend to keep on doing to increase your capacity to make informed decisions, and decisions that also reflect what the community needs are. And I will just say that my impression about one of the concerns that we have is that the port, because of the way in which ports are set up in the state of Washington, have a kind of an odd built-in limitation on accountability and transparency. It just seems to be baked in to the way in which the ports are set up. I'm not saying that this is intentional, that there's some sort of Machiavellian, we're gonna, game the system. I think it's something that is, it's the way in which this particular agency, which is sort of paragovernmental, operates.
Mhm.
But my impression is that it opens up a space where, depending upon who is in office, there can be accountability or little accountability, and there's very few remedies to address that. So I'm just hoping that I'm speaking out of turn. I'm not on the port team. I'm just a concerned citizen and a member of Olympia Indivisible. But I'm just trying to sort of unpack or open up with the hope that folks who are much more informed than I am can lean into this.
Thanks, Lisa.
Lisa, yes, I have a question. I put it in the chat, but I guess it wasn't received. So I'm just going to read my question, if I may. So Amy, I am one of those citizens who's very concerned about the Panatone development and 200 acres of trees being taken down. And so I'm just going to read my question. The city of Tumwater still has not submitted a habitat conservation plan to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And also the new state law, the Climate Commitment Act, requires protection of natural areas from development to protect trees for climate resilience. We see this in a couple of laws that were just signed into law this month by Governor Inslee. The awareness, the acknowledgement that trees play an important part in fighting climate change. So my question is, how does this square with your statement that the Panatone project is sensitive to environmental protection, and how would it meet the requirements of state and federal law?
Sure. Well, historically, a large portion of that property was prairie land, and the timber company next door planted trees on it. So I think there's a little bit of a, the number of trees that are currently on the property, the entire site is not covered in trees. I appreciate that there needs to be a balance of removing of trees and development so that we can continue to have the services that we need. The way that they would meet federal, state, and local requirements, and I just want to be clear, I'm not a developer, I'm just a real estate broker. So I'm not the one completing the project. So I don't have a full understanding of every nuance of, there isn't a project at this point. And to your point, the habitat conservation plan isn't done. I think that they will follow the rules, I guess, is the best way for me to answer that question. So to your point, there's these protections that are in place, the tree ordinance, the climate, what is the last law that you mentioned that I wanted?
It's the Climate Commitment Act.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Climate Commitment Act, the Habitat Conservation Plan, all of these things are in place to provide those protections to the environment that are being balanced with development. And those are going to be developed. There's no variances. There's no, they're not asking for any special treatment on those. They're going to follow all the protections that are in place. And so I guess I trust that our policies and protections that are in place are going to protect those resources. Whether or not there are individuals like yourself, Lisa, who want those protections to go above and beyond what's in place, I totally appreciate that. And I think that that's where, from an advocacy position, when those tree ordinances or when these protections are being put into place, there needs to be advocates from all points of view who then come up with policy that balances those interests. So I think the way that they're going to follow the rules is they're going to follow the rules that are in place, and the rules do continue to evolve. And that's the balance in my mind.
Okay, and you know that Tumwater has a new urban forestry management plan. It was
Correct.
just approved in March, and so there are some conflicts between that plan and the Panattoni project proposal. So, and I do understand there's a lot of pressure for development. Our county is growing, and there's a lot of balancing that needs to be done. So I acknowledge that, but we are in a climate emergency now, and it shouldn't be ignored that trees and natural areas play a huge part in carbon sequestration, and that must be taken into account. And I do hope, I mean, there are many of us, I'm active also with Thurston Climate Action Team, and so there are many of us out there advocating for these protections, and I hope that we are listened to, because the 300 or so of us who registered our protest of this Panattoni lease approval were not listened to by the port. And I would ask, and I expect to see in the future greater receptivity to the public, to the voters who put the commission in their seats. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question? And this goes to both of the Lisa's statements about accountability, transparency, not being listened to. What would improve that accountability, transparency, and feeling like you're being heard?
Well, here I'll give an example. When we brought this up to Commissioner Downing about not being listened to, he said, well, all those letters were all form letters, as if that somehow delegitimized them. That is very common. People don't send it, they don't sign a form letter or a petition unless they agree to it. Nobody forces them to do it. So they are saying, I have a family, I have a job, I don't have time to write a full letter myself, but I really care about this, and I'm very glad that somebody else wrote this letter, and I'm signing it because this letter expresses my beliefs and my expectations of what I want to see. So it was that kind of dismissive and condescending attitude that I felt personally, and I know many others felt, was very undemocratic. And it angered a lot of us.
Got it. That makes sense. I think that public participation is, in my experience, it can always be improved upon. You know, all of our municipalities struggle with how to communicate effectively and how to field that feedback. And so I appreciate that. I can understand how you feel, and hopefully we can all continue to do better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a few comments that I'd like to piggyback on both Lisa's and John's comments about. I've had that experience too with the commission where, you know, I've asked a question and just got no response. And the other thing about, you know, John's frustration with the taxation and the management of the port, it just seems like there's been a lot of bad decisions in the past several years that have put the port in a bad place. And so we're concerned about getting representation on the board that will, you know, reverse and change the direction. Like, you know, for example, the large crane that cost us a lot of money, and you know, it was clearly a bad decision. So anyway, does anybody else have any comment or question that they would like to ask? Because I know it's Amy
Carla has one.
She needs
I
to
see two
go pretty
hands.
soon, so.
Carla and Jean.
Oh, it's 6:44, maybe. Well, I guess my comment really was with regards to your comments about diversity. One of the things that has concerned me a lot is the Citizens Advisory Committee that's called POCAC. And I don't see much diversity there. I see a lot of people there who are leasees. They are leasing port property, or they are actually oriented to the water. But as we know, the port it has jurisdiction over the entire county. And every property owner in the entire county is taxed to support the port. So it seems to me that there needs to be much more representation from the entire county rather than, just the small group that's there that's very interested, but I don't think that they represent the breadth of our county. And I also would like to just mention something, just a little bit piggyback on what John Cezanne said too. And that is about the governance of the port and decision making. It's been very clear that there have been real money losers at the port. For example, the fuel dock that they installed, they did not really do the research that was necessary, and they took, I guess, someone's word for it that it was going to make money, and it's been a money loss, a money drain. And those are situations that I think we all need to be very mindful of, that the port goes into a lot of decision making using our tax dollars. And frankly, as a property owner, as a taxpayer, I am still trying to find the benefit that I am getting from the port. What does the port actually do for me? And I've really had trouble with this over the many years that I've lived in Olympia. I don't see the benefit that's going to all of us. Some people talk about jobs. Well, what are we getting for those jobs? What services are we getting for these jobs? And are these jobs all people who live in Thurston County, or do many of them live outside the county? I mean, these are big questions that I think really have not yet been fully addressed. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I have a lot of concerns myself about just how the port is operating, and also what Lisa Cezanne was mentioning, listening to the public. It's been very difficult to be heard by the port, and if they're only listening to this Citizens Advisory Group, that to me just doesn't seem to be representational enough of our communities. I mean, our whole Thurston County.
It seems like a good opportunity for Olympia Indivisible to have a representative on that group. So maybe moving forward, we could connect those dots.
Well, I'm not just talking about Olympia, but I am talking about the smaller communities, Bucota, Tenino, Rainier. These are communities that are in South Thurston County, and I don't think that they're getting any benefit from the port. I mean, I really do not see that they are getting much benefit.
We can talk more about that, Carla. One of the meetings I had today is about all the work that the port's doing in South County with agricultural stuff. So we don't have time to talk about it now, but it's pretty cool. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think Jean, did you want to speak?
I do. I want to thank you, Amy, for acknowledging two items, two policies that are hugely important to me. And you were acknowledging that it looks like the dam will be removed and that we will have a estuary. That is, I live in Tenino. I don't live right in the city area, but it's hugely important to me that we have that estuary and have a natural space there returned. And the second thing is, you are right that many of us feel very strongly against having military cargo as a moneymaker. I feel very strongly about that too, and I want to thank you for acknowledging that there are many of us that feel that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just would like to say that my impression about the culture of the port has been, and this is an unvarnished opinion, is that it's been an old boys network. It's been an old boys club. And I think that there may be some consequences to that in terms of what kind of representation is going to get the respect of the of your fellow commissioners. And I think that that problem also, or that dynamic, let's just say, that dynamic extends to the way in which commissioners interact with the public.
Mm.
So I just want to bring that to your attention, because my impression with Olympia Indivisible is that this has been an ongoing concern with us. We are citizen activists. We are ordinary folks who are trying to engage in the way that you engage, in those values that you espouse. Those are values that we espouse. We feel that this is what makes good governance, is when there is respectful civil discourse and deep listening between people who are elected to office and their constituents. And I think that that has been very problematic for those of us who are looking for that respectful reciprocity. So I'm not asking you a question, I'm just putting that out to you as a thought piece for you to take with you about why I think part of why we are leaning in to the port race, and why we attend those meetings, and why we take notes and we are following what is going on, because we feel this is so important to what makes democracy dynamic and functional.
Totally agree. Yep. I think that I really appreciate the depth of your research and your questions. And from traveling, some of my most formidable opinions are based on the ideas of any one group ruling never turns out very well. So I deeply believe in having a spectrum of opinions, more so than I believe in having any one of those opinions advance. So I really look forward to having open dialogue with you all. I think as a part-time position, I am concerned about how to properly respond to people. To be perfectly honest, that's something that I'm going to have to figure out. If you get 1,000 emails in one day and you have a job, how do you navigate that? That's something, because I do want to have an interactive relationship. So, but I really appreciate you all taking the time, and I hope that I get to work with you and get to make it a fun, awesome place to live, because we're lucky to live here. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for coming today. We really appreciate it. And we will look forward to seeing you in the future. And any emails can be sent to there's a email address on the chat if anybody wants to communicate with you directly. And I guess that's it. So thank you so much again. And
yeah, thank you. And you guys have my website. I have capped all contributions to my campaign at $250 a person, based on my belief in taking the money out of politics. So that was against conventional political wisdom, but we're doing okay. So, but if you guys would like any more information about my campaign, please feel free to reach out, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
okay.
Thank you.